Let's start with a little bit of the gear, because or the gear questions I would like to include in another Czech magazine called Musicus, which is a gear-oriented magazine. So you had incredible sound live, and I assume we can give credit to your signature model of ESP guitar, right?
Well, yeah, of course. Everything that we use is so top notch, I would say. I'm not a geek myself, basically, but I really like to have my shit together, and the signature ESPs that we're playing are really great guitars. You know, they're sustainable on tour, and they sound great. They feel great to play, and if I would buy it, I mean, if I wouldn't be endorsed, I would still buy ESPs, you know, and they would be expensive if I had to pay for them.
Yes. Could you mention which, as you say you're not a geek, but definitely you had some interesting specifications, right, for the custom guitar?
That's true. The shape first was, I'm really a fan of great white sharks, so I wanted to have like a V shape, but I wanted to have the top wing kind of like more like a shark fin, you know. So it's not entirely straight, but I developed the look of the guitar with my guitar technician at the time. So he constructed the headstock shape, because I use a pretty heavy string gauge when it comes to our tuning. We tune to D standard. We have done that the last few years, and so I use 13 to 15 to 56 gauge in strings, which is pretty heavy for standard D tuning, at least. So I needed to have a headstock that could sustain that tension, and that's been working really well. You know, I'm not the lead guitar player, so to get the most out of the sound, I wanted to have the strings go through the body instead of just the bridge, you know. So and also the pickups, Seymour Duncan pickups. It's the module that Mick Thompson. It's his signature pickups in it. Since then, I have now gone over to Lace pickups. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they endorse also Mastodon and a few other bands now.
Interesting.
And I've gone back to passive pickups, which we're also using on the new album. I think it has a much better dynamic range, but thinking about it, maybe I am a geek after all. Because
eventually,
it just feels more back to basics, you know. And that's how we started out. When we started Dimmu, we were playing with passive pickups, and I think the dynamic range is easier and better, and it goes better with my playing, I feel. So,
yes.
About the wood, it's Honduras mahogany in the body, and then it's ebony and rosewood, I think, in the neck. But I'm expecting 2 new signature models now, both exactly the same, apart from one being a baritone version. A six-string baritone version, and they will have a maple set neck instead of ebony and rosewood. So I'm really looking forward to get those babies in my hands.
I can imagine. Did I remember well that maple is slightly lighter? One of the lighter woods. Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
So it's also quite much harder wood as well compared to ebony.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Let's go now for the incredible DVDs. You have cooperated with the Norwegian Radio Orchestra and Choir, which is really nice that you supported your national colleagues as on the album, let's say, that called Amargeddon. You have cooperated with wonderful Prague Philharmonic Orchestra as our capital. So how would you compare these two wonderful professionals?
Well, they are, as you say, they are really professionals, both orchestras, and something that we noticed once we actually got to record with the Cork Orchestra for the Abra album. We understood pretty quickly that we were not the professionals. They were definitely on a different level and a different league, and we learned a lot from rehearsing and playing with them, and also with the Czech national orchestra that we utilized on the Wacken show. Goes the same for them, because they have orchestras in general. They, of course, they are have everything in order. You know, they have their way of doing things, and yeah, we learned a lot from just being with them, and I think we have taken that experience into how we conduct ourselves, not only writing music for the new album, but also how we do everything these days. So yeah, really professional, and they know their stuff, that's for sure.
Yes. And I could see also from the Wacken show and also from the Oslo show that they were really professional also in adapting for the makeup. You put some really nice makeup on their faces, so they were also very professional in that.
Yeah, some of them wanted to go the whole way, you know, and that's cool. Of course, when you deal with orchestras, there's bound to be some people in there that may be a bit skeptical towards you as a band, or the way we have done things. Maybe they've heard stories about from what genre we come from, blah blah blah, you know. But I think once they got into playing the songs, they changed their minds. At least the few people that were skeptical, we convinced them, and they later came up to us and say, "Oh, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. This was a great experience, and we really got challenged, and it was great to do something different than what they normally do." So to me, that in itself is a huge compliment.
Yes. Because I have a really big experience. They working on let's say movies, classical music, but also with number of metal bands coming from you guys, but also Blind Guardian, Within Temptation, so many bands. So you really feel that these guys got really into that, not being just professional, but really got into the feeling, the atmosphere of your music. That's really nice to hear. Yes.
The understanding of the music, and I think orchestral music and heavy metal in general have a lot of similarities, especially when it comes to the dynamics and how the music is written, with a lot of ups and downs, a lot of dramatic changes, you know, with a lot of passion, so it has a lot of stuff in common, and I think that's something that the orchestra players they recognize that very easily, and maybe even more easily with a band like us, because our music from the get-go is written with a symphonic feel in mind, you know. So so that goes across really well, and it's always been obviously a dream for us to be able to not only record with an orchestra but also perform with an orchestra live. So finally we got to do it, and of course, it has to be documented, and we have to release it.
Yes. I can imagine you and the other guys, as you were really interested into the orchestras, were probably as a youngsters interested in Wagner operas and stuff like that. Are you also have roots in the classical heavy music?
Not really. I guess people maybe expect that, but we're not really big listeners of classical music, apart from some main movie scores and maybe listening to the main composers once in a while, you know. But I listen more to country and reggae than I do classical music.
Very nice. That's what I was wondering. What's the inspiration coming? So country and reggae. Wow.
It wasn't like that in '93. I tell you that. So I guess it has to do with the age thing.
Yes. That's really interesting because within the reggae, I was really attracted by, let's say, the kids of Bob Marley, Stephen Marley's work, also all the other kids, and within the country music, I really love to get interested in the bands, the side projects of the metal people, like Devin Townsend's Casualties of Cool. It's wonderful country album,
yeah.
Brilliant. So also for you?
Yeah, absolutely, and also of course Hank III, obviously. But when it comes to country, it's the old school guys that rule my world. You know, especially Waylon Jennings. He's maybe my favorite because he was such a badass on and off stage. So I relate to that.
Yes. It's by any chance possible to include the elements of country and reggae into your music? Let's say you have really done some big progress, let's say on the Abradabra, but also, any chance you might be in any way including, I'm not saying it's obvious, but in any way including these elements into your new album?
I'll tell you something that you're probably the first one to know this, but during the writing of Abradabra album, we are talking to Hank III about doing a cover of 3 Shades of Black, but we never got around to do it. We were in the stages of getting everything sorted out legally, and he had to talk to his record label, blah blah. But we got the green light from Hank, and but for some reason we didn't get around to record that song. So. Oh. That's how close we were to country, man.
Wow. Well, any chance for you, as with all the respect, Dimmu Borgir is not releasing albums so quickly and so often, any chance for you to do, let's say, side projects as, let's say, Nergal from Behemoth?
Well, I guess not in a country way of things, but, Shagrad has Chrome Division, and they're working on a new album at the moment. We just mixed the new Insidious to Steve's album in January, which I have together with Mark, who used to sing in Morgoth, and Shane Embry plays bass, and what bands are you not playing with?
Yeah.
And then Tony Lariano on drums, and since last album, Cyrus, who has been playing bass with Dimmu, is playing guitar with me in Insidious now. So
yes.
That album is going to come out later this year as well. So yeah, it's going to be a busy year.
I can imagine. I can really imagine. Well, if we still stay within the DVDs, I must say you did some incredible, hell of a show. I can imagine both fans at Wacken all together, but also your really huge fans in Oslo really enjoyed the show. But if I may compare the shows I've seen, let's say Vertain live, I've seen Behemoth live, and these sort of the bands try to make it in a sort of the darker and really scary way. With your show, it's spectacular, huge. It can be also sometimes scary, but with all the respect, it's rather fun and a really crazy carnival. If you understand what I mean.
Say it's more of a carnival in the sense, But our music is much more dimensional than I guess you can say Behemoth's music are. So when we do a show, it has so many different aspects to it, and you have the bombastic stuff, and you have the more primitive stuff, and to get a cooperation between all these things, then it calls for a different setting for each song, basically. And I think that's where if I understand you correctly, is that that's where we are differing a little bit from the other bands, and
yes.
it's more of an empowering show than it is a depressing show, if you know what I mean.
Yes,
so,
definitely.
Yeah,
it's definitely a compliment. I was wondering also if if all of these aspects of the show, let's say there goes a crazy keyboard effect, here are really interesting costumes, are you working on these ideas all together, or once one person from you says, I really want a really crazy effect in this part, and of course Shagrat goes for his frontman, emperor, soldier costume. So how does it work within you guys for these ideas?
Well, I think everyone is entitled to come up with suggestions with everything basically, and for instance on the Abra Dabra album, Shagrat was the one that had the idea of going in the more white gray type of costumes. And at first I thought that would be too bold move, because it could fail miserably, but once we got working on that idea, I was convinced that that was the right step for us to do at the time, So it's all about challenging ourselves all the time, Even if I thought first maybe not is attractive, you kind of use the elimination method. See, you try it out and see if it could work, and if it works, then you keep it, and if not, then at least you try it,
Definitely.
So, but that's the stage we do before we actually get to execute the idea. If it's, we try it out first before we show it to anybody else,
Yes. Well, I can imagine both live shows needed some hell of a preparations. So I was just wondering if you can mention some of the steps that had to be taken in order to do that. You invited some incredibly, really interesting guests. Arranging hundreds of people on the stage must be hell of a work. I guess you had some really big shot after everything got done.
Yeah, that's true. Of course, the two shows are different in the sense of the preparation part, because the Oslo show we went through the set before the doors opened, so we had rehearsed 3-4 days with the orchestra prior to that at the NRK studios. In Prague, where we rehearsed with the Czech orchestra, we had pretty much the same 3-4 days, I guess it was, but at Wacken we obviously didn't have a sound check, so it's more like much more of a gamble and plug and play type of thing when you're gonna fit and mic up 100 people on a festival outdoor stage in front of 90,000 people, in the matter of 45 minutes. It's a lot of stuff that can go wrong.
Yes.
But luckily it didn't, and I think that's because we were also well prepared, and that we also had done that Oslo show the year before. So with that in the back of our minds, it was easier to do the Wacken show. If that would have been the first show, it would have been a little bit different, I'm sure. But since we already had done a show before with orchestra, we had that in the back of our minds.
Yes. Were you also in any way, checking the earlier work of both orchestras closely? If you just wanted to be definitely sure these people can do that and understand your music.
Yeah, we did of course do some research, but when it comes to the Cork Orchestra, we knew that they had done so much stuff from before. I mean, they are considered to be one of Europe's best orchestras, and they have a long merit list basically. So we knew that they were, one of the better ones to do this with. And the same with the Czech Orchestra as well. They're renowned and have played with a lot of varied artists as well. So we knew that from that point of view, we couldn't really go wrong.
Yes. If I look at your discography, this might be probably a fun release called Titans of Symphonic Metal, released in 2014, split with Sonata Arctica and Avantasia. It's a rather fun split than something proper. That's why I was wondering if, even though you're a fan of country and reggae, but I was also wondering if you're also to today and slightly in the past, taking having a respect for some other symphonic metal bands. I was wondering, let's say, about the Greeks, Septic Flesh, incredible Australian band, Ne Obliviscaris, which are, let's say, studied by universities in Australia.
Yeah.
Any respect for these sort of bands?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know what they have to do to go through making their music. You know, I can totally relate to the extra amount of work which you have to put into making it sound orchestral. So I have a lot of respect for other bands too, even if, let's say, I'm not a Sonata Arctica fan, but I have still a lot of respect for what they do as well. You know?
Yes.
And just because I know the amount of work that lies behind everything, and that's they're all professionals, and there's a reason why these bands are popular. You know.
Yes. And it's also interesting, let's say, within the Australian Ne Obliviscaris, these guys are getting part of their finance through crowdfunding campaigns from their fans, which is really great today when it's really hard to make some money from the music. So with all the respect, can you say it was slightly easier for you guys when still money was coming also from the album sales?
Yeah, we're actually really lucky that we still sell a huge, significant amount of hard copies. You know, Of course, things have changed the last few years, but still, considering that fact, we're still lucky to be able to sell a nice amount of products. Of course, when we have been away for so long now, of course, the income decreases year by year. So it's been some difficult financial times as well, especially since we haven't really toured that much either. But that again just reminds you of why you're doing this. And if you would do it for the money, we would obviously record an album every year and tour until we record the next album. So I think it's just stupid when people say that, oh, they're releasing the DVD because they need money. You know, we don't have to release the DVD, because if we did it for the money, it's like, you know, we're not earning anything on the DVD anyway, in the sense that it cost so much to produce it, you know, and put it out. So we're doing it because we're proud of the fact that we did the orchestra shows, and it's a huge thing in our career. So and that goes with touring in general. When we play shows, we try and be selective and play less but bigger shows, so we can put more money back into the production. Because when I go and see a show, I want to have my money's worth. You know, when I pay a ticket, I want to feel that once I've seen a show and a band, I've gotten my money's worth. So we try and apply the same rule for Dimmu when we tour. And I want fans to be satisfied after they leave the concert hall and say to themselves that, well, actually, I don't mind paying this amount of money to see the show because it was great, you know?
Yes. Well, I'm glad you're saying that, because I personally also feel that you have one of the most loyal fans on the market. I remember, let's say, one of my best friends, I was buying her Dimmu Borgir t-shirt for her birthday. A dedicated fan. So I'm really glad to see that. And next to that, I can also see that personally on various social media where people are really loyal. But at the same time, it's also, you know, hell of a place today. The social media full of jokes, ridiculous stuff. You cannot imagine, man. You can see that. Well, you know, symphonic metal and also black metal. It's one of the craziest areas you can go with all those Abath and Burzum and any crazy black metal jokes. So I probably, I assume you don't take any of those jokes seriously, but you rather say let them have fun and then go back to music.
I'm too old and too cold to care. You know, I don't take myself very seriously, anyways. But of course, when I'm on stage, I'm diving into the Silenoz character, obviously.
Yes.
Has become part of me, so I cannot deny that. But off stage is a different thing, you know, and when you mention the social media, that's it's funny thing because suddenly everyone is an expert, you know. They sit behind their keyboards and they're all experts, and they know exactly, it seems, what the band is about and up to. So it's funny to read some of the comments, you know. Some of them have no fucking clue.
You're absolutely right. And when you're talking about research, it's I was wondering, let's say, regarding the previous album, In Sorte Diaboli, there was I loved the song and the video and overall aspect of the album, and especially the song Serpentine Offering, where I was wondering if you are also personally involved in sort of the, you know, historical research of the, let's say, the devil. Personally, I really enjoyed the book called The History of the Devil from Robert Muchenblatt. It was really interesting, covering the whole history of humankind and the look of humanity on devil and on the evil church burnings, also, and the witchcrafts, everything possible throughout the history. So I was wondering if you're in throughout your life was you know, involved in the research of those areas, historical.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done quite a lot of reading on all those subjects, and when it comes to In Sorte Diaboli album, the story that I depict on the album is actually a very personal story, but I used the idea of the devil from a point in my life when I was actually attending what you can call Sunday school or whatever. I was about 6 or 7 years old, and I was there not all the time like the other kids, but every time I was there, we got like a star in the book, you know, that we had. And I didn't have as many stars as the other kids, and for some reason I started being treated differently than the others. And that's when it really dawned on me that religion is fucking bullshit, you know. I get treated differently just because I don't attend as many meetings as the other kids, you know. There's something totally wrong about that, you know. So that's when I had this huge revelation, I guess you can say, without maybe knowing it at the time, but I had this huge revelation, and I applied that later in life in the story of the In Sorte Diaboli, about this kid who first goes to see a religious teacher, you know, and then he suddenly have this revelation, and he sees the light through Lucifer, you know. So symbolically, that's what I went through when I was a kid, you know. Yes.
Well, I can definitely relate to that, and especially plenty of kids in Serbia. Personally, I'm half Yugoslavian, and I spent my puberty in Belgrade, Serbia, where the country is really hardcore religious, and I came there as a metal kid. And I remember those days on the city square, there were only few metal kids in the whole city, and all of them were wearing Dimmu Borgir and Cradle of Filth sweatshirts. To be really honest, you had some really hardcore fans back then. I you know, received from one of those guys Death Called Armageddon album back then, because it was really hard to download and buy. Impossible. There were no original albums back then, so we were downloading back then, and you had some really hardcore fans back then who were treated bad, and all of us back then, rock fans in Serbia, treated really bad from surroundings. So I believe this sort of the approach sort of strengthened their love for the band.
Yeah, and I can imagine. I can only imagine how hard that must have been, because how really applying a tough mentality to be able to be daring enough to wear shirts in public like that, when you know that there's might be confrontations with people, you know, because they're so religious, and that just shows how ironic the religious movements in the world are. You know, they're supposed to be forgiving and including, while it's the exact opposite. So I'm really proud to hear you guys for going on taking chances for just wearing a simple shirt, you know.
Yes, yes. So I'm really glad that you're doing for all of us and your hardcore fans, releasing a 10th album this year. So please tell us what we can expect.
You can expect what I would consider, of course, the best album we have done to date. I know every band says that, but if I didn't believe in us doing the best album so far in our career, then it would be any point making a new album. So, I think people. It's fair to say that the fans should expect the best out of us as well, because we've been away for so many years now, and we have obviously something to prove, not only towards ourselves but also the fans. And I think we will be able to deliver what they expect, and once they hear the new album, they probably will forget about all the years that has gone by without new music. So I think it's safe to say that that what sounds more epic and majestic are more epic and majestic, and the same goes for the brutal sound of Dimmu, and also the primitive and more black metal sound of Dimmu is more black metal this time around. So you will have the more extremes of each part that we are known for.
Okay. So we can say you were not that wildly experimental, but you spread the spectrum of all of your great qualities a bit, one more level up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I think you nailed that right on the point. So I'm pretty confident that this album is the best we have done, and we have worked harder on this album than any in the past, and we have demoed every song down to the last little detail. So there's no surprises for us once we started recording the album in the studio. Now there are no really big surprises, because we have been so detailed about the work this time. So the main point was, of course, to get the best performances out of each person in the studio. So, and I believe we have done just that.
Yes. While you were writing the album, were you relying mainly on your hardcore trio, or were you also getting involved creatively, also the other members who are only so far active on tour?
Yeah, no, it was just Galder, Scheigert, and myself that was doing the writing of the album. We had a little bit assistance from the keyboard player, but it was less on this album than it was on the previous one. So the writing in itself is the same trio of us, you know, and then that seems to be working best. And it means it's less cooks in the kitchen.
Okay. So thank you very much. This was really fun interview. Wish you all the best. Good luck in 2017, and hopefully see you soon in Czech Republic.
Yeah, I really hope so too. And we can't wait to come back and tour and meet the fans again. You know, and yeah, it's been a while, but I think it's safe to say that you cannot force art, and it just has to come when it's ready. And we're ready now, so really looking forward to it. And yeah, thanks a lot for the interview.
Cheers, all the best. Take care.
You too, man. All right, talk later.
Bye.
All right, bye.